record to the computer. Good. Outline of the session, what are we going to be doing today? Would be a good thing. Also, very quickly as well, if you do find yourself, you're not on mute, just quickly mute yourself, that'll be lovely. Outline of the session is, we're going to be talking about the importance of digital giving, what's kind of going on, using online giving and something called QR codes, which we're becoming increasingly familiar with over the last couple of years. We're going to be talking about contactless giving and what that is, a little bit about how it works. We're going to be talking about the devices that are available through Parish Buying and getting the most out of digital giving. And then at the end, we'll do some Q&A on this. Good. The importance of digital giving is going to be where we're going to kick off. And before I move into this, many of us are kind of just getting increasingly familiar with digital giving. Some of you are using it through your own websites and portals, and almost all of us are familiar with sites like Just Giving, which is the site people use where they do sponsored events. So digital giving is becoming important in terms of what's happening. But it's important for us because on average, giving accounts for 75% of a church's income. And increasingly, their dependence on cash is being threatened from every different position. If it's not collapsed already, it's veering on the point of collapse in terms of the amount of people who are giving through cash at the moment. We need to have the right mechanisms in place for people to give and be confident in terms of how they're giving if they're not giving through cash and they're giving digitally. We know we're living in an increasingly cashless society, and I'll be saying more about that in a minute. Digital giving through donations made online or through a contactless device is an important way for churches to receive gifts as we move forward. It's a kind of given in terms of where we are. And online and contactless donations are typically higher than cash donations, and we're going to be looking a little bit about why that might be as well, because that's an interesting phenomenon for us. First off, let's look at cash payments versus credit card donations or credit card use. This was a chart which came onto the BBC in 2018 and then was forecasting through to 2028 in terms of the numbers of billions of pounds that are being spent or given over through cash payments versus credit card. And in this prediction, it was predicted that in around 2016, there was a crossover where the cash payments and debit card payments were the same. What this chart doesn't predict is the impact of COVID and the fact that increasing numbers of shops now saying they can't accept cash, they will only accept card payments. So increasingly we're working towards a cashless society. COVID simply pushed that even further. And we're seeing that as an impact in terms of people giving to our churches. Some people see that as a threat, but it's also a massive opportunity. And we'll talk through that opportunity that it is. If someone gives a contactless donation and it's a default machine, so it just has on it, give £5 or £10, tap your card here, the average donation given through that is £6.02. When people have an option to give more, they do. So therefore, where you offer people choice around how much they give, 5, 10, 15, £20, then the average donation increases to £10.30. And when someone is sat at home or sat on their device using a laptop or a smartphone, their average donation increases to £39.58. So this is saying that when people are given the opportunity to give more, they do. But what I think we're stuck with is an average cash donation of £2 is probably what people are, the choice that people are making is how much cash do I have in my pocket at that point in time. And that's what's driving that, rather than actually people's own generosity of what they want to give. So digital giving gives us a real opportunity to increase the average donations that people are giving by, if we have the right mechanisms in place and the other parts of the picture, which I'll come to. I want to talk first about online giving and QR codes before contactless machines. The reason for that is anybody coming to us saying we'd like a contactless machine, we always push them first towards going, have you got your online options sorted? And that's because they're quick, easy, and relatively free. The cost behind doing online giving is very cheap. And so therefore we always push people to doing online giving first. What do we mean by this? This is where people give a donation via a web browser, either on their phone or a tablet or laptop, desktop computer. It's in lieu of the physical cash or contactless donations, as we know. It also makes it easy for people to give physically or online, including online services. It's ideal for fundraising visitors because it's so familiar for so many now. It gives you the opportunity to share the link to your giving page on your church website. a Church Near You website on social media, mailing lists, and through QR codes. So communicating the need that your church has for this, for people's support, and also the impact that support has. We'll be saying more about that later as well. How does online giving work? We've got a few partners that you need to be considering. The first is a software provider. We often point to an organization called Give a Little, who provide a nice shiny front end to what you're doing. We'll see what that shiny front end is in a minute and what that looks like. And that needs to go hand in hand with a merchant account provider. They act as like a sort of small bank account that enables, takes the money from Visa or from MasterCard or from the bank in different ways, holds that and then sends that onto your account. And that enables you to move forward in terms of loading onto your own homepage of your website or somewhere else. We'll talk about where's next, so that people have a place where they can give and give easily and give quickly. So here's a church for you, St Michael and All Angels, based in Walthamstow in East London. They have their own webpage, but also have a Church Near You webpage. And at the bottom of here, or just after that page, it says Give Now. And there's a place where they can go. And if you click on that, it comes up with this webpage that points people to supporting the churches, give a range of gifts, and also gives people the offer of continuing that gift on a monthly basis as well. So it's a quick and easy kind of two-step solution of people going through and giving in that way. The same would be true on your own church website. You end up with a bit of code that you can drop into your church website of Giving Now, take you through that, and the same kind of pages appear. That's the shiny front end. That's provided by this provider, Give a Little. Next thing to talk about is once you've got yourself set up in terms of your web pages or on a church near you, how do you kind of get that out there? QR codes. Before the pandemic, very few of us were using QR codes, and most of us expecting them to die out quite quickly. Turns out they've become incredibly popular things that increasingly people are using. In fact, here is a chart for you that shows how popular they've become. If you click on that, if you get your smartphone out now and use that QR code there, that will take you to the Church of England giving pages. So it's a way for you to kind of direct people very quickly towards what you want to direct them to on your website. That's why they were so popular during the pandemic. Rather than giving long web addresses to the web pages that you want to direct people to, a QR code on a smartphone will take you straight there. Bang, you're through. And there on the right-hand side, you see the peak that's happened in terms of the numbers of QR codes out there and the number of people using them. So as I was saying, what these do is enable smartphone users to easily access a web page by scanning the code using their camera app and becoming a visible part of the online donation offering, as we see. Lots of places people can add a QR code to direct people to giving pages. Here's an example church where it's going to welcome St Mary's on a postcode, talks about what's going on. There's a QR code on this right-hand side that people can immediately jump through to. They're not typing the details of a web address into a browser. So people are printing these on order of services, on postcards to leave at the front of church, on bookmarks the church might be giving away, on any newsletters or news sheets that are sent out, and on invites and posters. So they become a ubiquitous ways in which people see actually, yeah, oh, I've forgotten to give this week, or yeah, I do need to give, I want to give my weekly donation or my monthly donation, however they choose to do, there's the offer there and it's present to them. And that's what's valuable about using QR codes. Next, to talk about contactless giving, because many of you are kind of really interested in terms of contactless devices and what's going on with that. And it's a little bit of a trickier story to tell in different ways. Contactless donations, you might be familiar, are made in lieu of, contactless donations made on a contactless donation device using a bank card or a variety of smartphone devices. So through a card, through a smartphone, or some of us even use it through smart watches in different ways. Most of us are most familiar to just using that card. The number of places in which we go to now where they won't accept payments unless you pay through a contactless card or through using a chip and pin device is now just upon us, really. As I was saying, the numbers of coffee shops I go into where they're refusing to take cash, they will only take contactless or chip and pin, is just there. Likewise, so a contactless device enables you to use that for donations. One thing that you really need to consider, though, in terms of contactless device in your church is connectivity. Now, in theory, you don't need an internet connection for all devices to work at the point of taking a donation, but I'll say that in a minute. There's lots of guidance about installing an internet connection, and they're available on the Church of England website and through Parish Buying. So do look at this stuff first in terms of thinking about it. But in some places, some devices will allow you to upload a donation first, and then, or take a donation and then upload it to the internet later. But connectivity in a church doesn't have to be through having a broadband connection. It can be through having Wi-Fi extenders, SIM cards, and mobile broadband routers. We have a rule of thumb in terms of conversing, in terms of talking to a church, in terms of what internet connection they've got is for a contactless donation device to work, an online one, so therefore the donation will go through at that time and then be loaded through onto the internet and all the processing happening in real time. You need 2 bars of either 3G or 4G signal in your church at the place where you want to keep your contactless device. If you have 2 bars of 3G or 4G signal, that's enough for that device to work. And that can be on any network. So there are providers that we use who will use Vodafone or O2 or EE, whoever the internet mobile provider is, they will use that signal to be able to send your details through to the right people at the right time. We would always point people to the best solution is really if you can allow it, get a connection on that device for that device to work well. I'll talk a little bit about devices that don't work in that way that you can download later in a minute. We have some challenges there. But always consider connectivity where you are. The other thing we'll say is if you can't get those 2 bars of 3G or 4G signal in your church where you want to keep the device, look around your church. Is there anywhere where you can get those? Because then you can use a mobile broadband router. So it's a device and a little line that will take the signal from one part of the building where you've got a strong signal to a part of the building where the signal is weak and basically extend it. And that's an option for you as well. And that's a lot cheaper than getting a broadband link into your own church. So questions to ask in using contactless donations is, does our church have connectivity, which we've touched? Do we want to take payments as well as donations? We can touch on this because some churches have a bake sale or they sell specific things, maybe in terms of room bookings that people now want to pay by card. And therefore you can do donate payments as well as donations, but we'll talk about that in more detail. Do you need as a device something that works out of the box, or would you be able to manage the device yourselves? So this is about how tech savvy your community is, or some people in your community is, or how tech savvy is the people you've got contact with. So they'll be able to set it up for you and work with you to maintain it. Or do you need somebody to be doing that for you so it works out of the box? That's an important question. Do you go down a tap and go option? Therefore, asking for someone for a simple donation of £5 as you're leaving a church congregation? Or do you want a more engaged approach where you're asking people to consider how much they can afford? Do you need a portable device, or securable or freestanding? Is it a device that you want to use at church fates and to take around with you at different things? Sometimes in terms of a multi-parish benefice, you might want to swap that machine between the churches as well and keep that moving. So you'll need to be very portable. But if you're a church which has really kind of quite strong architectural features where you get a lot of visitors coming through it, a freestanding device that really draws people attention to it is probably a better option for you. And we'll look at what the options are in a minute, but you've got to have a think about that. Do you want to use the same provider for online giving as well as contactless, and therefore keep things simple for your treasurer? Or are you happy with going for another provider as well, which means another set of accounts and downloads for your church treasurer to be taking consideration of? And last thing is, how much budget do we have available? We would always kind of warn people as well, kind of like, think about the suitability and what you want to use the device for, and I'll talk through that when we look around the devices available. So these are the devices which are available through Parish Buying. There are others out there, but I will keep pushing Parish Buying and I'll explain why as we go through this. So first off, what is Parish Buying? It's a website and service provided by the National Church. It's a range of goods and services available, anything from energy to audiovisual equipment to digital giving solutions and digital payment solutions. All the suppliers have undergone due diligence and provide good, valuable and reliable service for churches. So we've done that hard work for you. It's free to use and more than one person in your church can register on Parish Buying. You must go via the pages on Parish Buying to get discounts available to churches rather than going direct to those providers. Because what Parish Buying also does, it has the economies of scale. We're buying for over 6,000 churches in the UK, or more than that. We're buying for all the kind of churches in the UK and the numbers of people who are buying to the Parish Buying scheme. So the economies of scale, we've got a better. We can negotiate better discounts than you can as an individual church. So the starting point for any work in terms of contactless device and contactless giving and online giving is to register with Parish Buying first, if you're not registered already. And anything that you do in terms of going to any of these providers I've talked about, make sure that you go and access those through Parish Buying, because that's the way in which your discounts will apply and you'll get the best rates possible. That's my pitch on Parish Buying finished. Let's go back to the devices. So there are devices available where you don't need that connectivity. You don't need those 2 bars of 3G or 4G signal. However, due to changes with suppliers, we're limited in terms of our options for churches that have no Wi-Fi or 3G or 4G signal. The GWD donation station, which is the tablet on the right, is due to have offline capability from November this year. And the offline capability means that people can give donations in a church where they're stored on the device. Then you take the device somewhere with a Wi-Fi signal and it downloads that onto a computer, so over the internet, and does it that way. So this is likely to be most suitable for the form in GWD MIDI, and as I was saying, can be taken away. We hope to be able to offer more offline solutions and options shortly, but at the moment this is the only one that we have through Parish Buying, just a warning on that. But again, we will say to churches, the vast majority of churches, some point somewhere on their property, they are able to get two bars of at least 3G or 4G signal, and that can be extended. So therefore, don't let do some good investigation before you write it off completely. The devices that need connectivity are Collecting More, which is used as the Give a Little app, and you can see that it's very portable. It has a lanyard built around it, so it can go around somebody's neck. So if they're walking around the church fete, they can be the billboard to give for that church. It's that portable. It can even be passed along a line of people if that's what you want to be doing with it. As you move along this line, they become less portable. The giving station can be moved from place to place, but it's quite a meaty bit of kit. It's made of metal and wood, so it weighs quite a bit, and you can secure it to a table. I think they both come with a Kensington lock. That's like a bike lock. You can choose to secure it somewhere. Then you move along the GW Slim. GW Skinny, which is the lovely one with the pictures on, is ideal for a church which has a lot of visitors, which because of its architectural features or there's something within the church that draws people in. I was speaking to a church last week that it's the second most visited church in the diocese after the cathedral. And the reason they had that was because they've got their windows are painted by Chagall, the Russian artist, and they get coach loads of people come to visit and see those windows. So therefore, having an attractive device that draws people in is going to be important to them. It's more expensive, the ongoing costs are more expensive, but you're also going to get more people who are giving through it because they can see it and they can see what it's there for and what its purpose is. So don't be put off by price as your first point in these things, is our word of advice to you. So we talked about earlier as well, out of the box versus user configured. So the GWD devices basically work out of the box, but you need to go through a lot of paperwork with GWD. That's the company who will send them to them and sell them to you. So you have to submit those applications. So they set up those for you with those applications and the forms that you send them through. So when they arrive with you, it works out of the box for you. But the user configured ones are the Collecting More and the Pay as Giving station, where therefore you're working with Give a Little and linking that to your SumUp account, or your and therefore making those devices work for you, and then you're controlling what appears on the screen. You're configuring those devices more. You need a little bit of text, a little bit of support in terms of being tech savvy enough to be able to do that. But for most churches, they will have that somewhere in their congregation, or they'll bring somebody in. They know someone who can do that and support them in that way. To give you a rough cost overview in terms of what are we talking, these prices are up to date and they exclude VAT at the moment. The upfront cost for collecting more is £244, and of course the cost of these then goes up to £1,275, which is a GW MIDI with an integrated cash box. So those are the kind of upfront cost difference here that you're paying for. But the GW Skinny, even at £894, seems like a lot of money. But if you're thinking about this church which had these paintings in it, they were getting coachloads of people who were coming through. They had 30,000 visitors a year coming through that church. You want to be sure that your device is being noticed by those people if it's going to be used. That can be a good investment of money. Some devices have an ongoing monthly fee. In fact, it's only the GWD ones that do, and that's £13.50. And then there's a transaction fee of between 1.1 to 1.3% for the collecting more and pay as giving stations. And then for the GWDs, it's 1.99% plus 5 pence. And then the mobile data costs for pay as giving station and the GWD is £42 for that and the collecting more. And then £95 up front and a £7.50 month fee for the other GWD devices. But again, we would say cost overview is something to be considered as part of the picture, but shouldn't be the driving kind of force for you. Now, if you're all from Manchester, I've got some good news coming up for you, and this is it. So between November 22 this year and March 23, the Manchester Diocese and the National Giving Team are running a joint project to grant 50 contactless devices to churches across the diocese. It's yet to be decided whether that's going to be a completely free grant or whether there's going to be a contribution asked from those churches who apply and are successful, but we'll have 50 devices to effectively give away. That's part of a national programme which aims to grant around 2,000 devices to churches across the UK. And at present, the devices that we're granting are the Collecting More, the Pay as Giving Station, GWD MIDIs and GWD Skinners. The devices being granted, the ongoing costs will need to be covered by a church. Now, to make sure you know when to apply for these devices and the process to go through, send it in if you're interested in this, send an email to paulbailey@manchester.anglican.org with the subject line Contactless Rollout 2022. Those are the devices that we're going to be granting away. And I think it's normally that we give around about 4 GWD Skinners, about 10 MIDIs, about 20 or so pairs giving stations, and the rest would be Collecting Mores. That's more or less the proportions that we kind of give away in this rollout, so you get an idea of that. But take note if you're interested in being part of that. The next bit, I'm going to repeat a little bit of what Jonathan, my colleague in the National Giving Team, in fact, my boss in the National Giving Team, was saying in regard to how do you make the most out of contactless giving and digital giving in the round, really. We have to really kind of consider this MINT acronym again. We've talked a lot about mechanisms, the mechanisms of online giving and the mechanism of contactless giving, but it's only part of the picture. We need to be explaining to people the impact that church is having, what you're doing in the community and the environment around it, the need that you have for support, as well as then also building trust through thanking and explaining to people what you've done with their money, what that money has gone towards. So this MINT acronym is what we're using. It's part of the picture of what you're having to do to build and make best use of any online giving or contactless donation device that you've got. The danger is you can set these things up as mechanisms. You can have your contactless device, you can have your online giving, but those things will sit in a dormant part of your website or will sit in a dusty shelf in the church if we don't build these things around it. It's part of a wider picture of what's happening. Other ways to make this work is make it a team effort. So a few people in your church know how to turn on your contactless device off and on. Think about location that you're using a contactless device. It's like houses, location, location, location. So know how people can set it up and how they can work with it, and it's there and they see it as being a place to give a donation. Promote it with posters and material around it, specifically speak to the impact and the need in your church. And the last thing to do is explain it. So make sure in services, every so often someone's talking about the contactless machine, pointing out where it is. If it's portable enough, bring it to the front of the church. Somebody can give a donation over it so people get more and more familiar with it. When to use contactless donations and contactless devices? They can be used on Sunday services, online services, life events, weddings, funerals, baptisms, those kind of things, midweek groups, fundraising events, and visitor donations. So you're bringing the thing out and you're using it around and about. So last thing, any big questions you've got, then digitalgiving@churchofengland.org is the email address. Remember, of course, this presentation will be downloaded onto the website as well after this and before the end of the conference. So you'll be able to get these email addresses as well from there. But that's another place to visit in terms of questions that you might have. Thank you for this. I'm going to stop there and we're going to go to questions for you. So we've got a little bit of time for questions. Stop share. And if I had someone wanting to come in. Great. Has anybody got any questions for me following that presentation? Thanks for your time and your patience. Conscious trying to get the amount of information in this out to you as well as enabling you to digest it as well is a little bit of a challenge. If you've got a question, I know Andrew's got one, then wave your hand or put your hand up and then just jump in. Go, Andrew.
Are any of the devices you've spoken about time limited in that 3G is going to be disappearing?
No, because that's all done through SIM cards. So therefore, if 3G disappears and it becomes 4G and 5G, it will be a case of replacing a SIM card. So it's not built in SIM cards. So therefore, that isn't. So we're trying to make them as future-proof as possible. Now, all tech has a shelf life in that sense. So it's a goodness, we are hoping that it has a good shelf life in terms of how it's being used. But it's a pretty fast-moving environment. I think part of our intention of giving away devices is that people lose their fear behind them and just get going now in the knowledge that in a few years' time, yeah, we might need to buy another one. But actually, it's made its money and some. It's kind of, we bought this thing, but we've raised 50 times more money by getting it than we had before. And that's good news. It's one of those things in fundraising terms, because my background is a fundraising return, that is the return on investment. And if I get a fundraising return on investment, spend £1 and get £10 back in, that's great news. So but that's a bit of a shift in mentality for many in the church, as I'm sure you'll appreciate. Elizabeth.
Thank you.
No worries.
Hi. Do you think you could recommend a SIM option where we haven't got Wi-Fi connectivity and we are looking at that and we were a little bit perturbed about the cost? So I don't know if you have any recommendations on the SIM option.
Yeah, go. So therefore, I'd ask you a few questions first in terms of, are you looking for it only for your contactless device? Or are you looking for other things as well?
Other support within for service use, that kind of thing, but occasional rather than routine.
Good. Go onto the Church of England website and search internet connection in my church.
Yeah.
And that will give you guidance in terms of what to do and what your options are as well. And then those options as well can go, hopefully it will direct you to Parish Buying. And then in the Parish Buying site, it will talk about the options that you've got in terms of extending it.
Right, thank you.
And seeing what's there, that's good. No worries. Any questions from anyone else? Good, Paul, go for it.
Yeah, on one of your slides, you showed some ongoing fees, and one of them was £42. Is that a monthly fee or an annual fee, or
that's an annual fee? An annual fee. It's about £4, £4.10, I think, a month. I think it is now or thereabouts. It's relatively low in terms of that one.
Great, thank you.
Not at all. And also, if you want to proceed in terms of further forward, then we'll kind of, fees are changing all the time in different ways. So anything at the time, those prices were for guidance only. Really, it gives you an idea. They're indicative. But anything at the time that you sign up for will be clarified then as well. Likewise with the rollout. So if you applied for a device, it will be clear at that point yeah, an acceptance device. Here are the ongoing costs that you would need to pay for.
Great, thanks.
Awesome. Any other questions before I allow you to scarper for lunch? Philip, I can see you grabbing your mouse and going to turn yourself off mute. No, you're not. It's pulled out. Good idea. Great. In which case, Elizabeth, did you have another question? Your hand is still up. You might be done.
Actually, I do. Sorry.
Good.
From what I remember on the slide, the contactless devices that are in the rollout, the November to March, they all require internet connection, those devices, don't they?
No, one of them doesn't.
Oh,
So
okay.
one is the GWD MIDI, which is the
Right.
one that there's a software update coming for it in November, which will
right.
enable you to use that offline.
Okay, thanks.
But again, I think I would go back to this thing of if you were to do that, then you have a monthly charge to keep it online.
Yes.
So if you're thinking about the internet connection in the wider church and pulling in a mobile signal to boost in your church, think about doing that first, because you've got other things that you want to do with that.
Yes.
And you want to try and reduce the number of fees that you're paying in different places.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Good. Great.
I
Judith.
can't find my hand to put a
Oh, there you
ask a
are. Your
question.
hand's there. I can see it. I can see it.
Oh dear. I had a question about the devices and whether you need permission, you know, you need a faculty, things like that. So I just wasn't sure
Good.
how that goes. If you can just stick one of those collect-ins, because they're a bit. Say again. Sorry, I missed that.
I was about to say, and if you're not doing anything on the wall, so if you're not bolting it to a wall, you're fine. So you can bolt it to a heavy table and screw it down that way, and therefore you don't have to get faculty permission to do that. It's a case of if you want to bolt it to a wall, you will end up having to get the faculty permission.
Okay.
And
cool,
increasingly, I think faculty permissions are becoming easier, as well, diocese to diocese, but I'll allow someone else to fight that battle.
That's great, thank you.
Yeah, our recommendation would be it might be easier to bolt it to a table, because then the table is mobile.
Yeah, we've got some heavy duty tables that would work.
Perfect. That's what you want. Good. If there are no more questions, I'll just look around to see anybody else waving frantically. Then I'll let you run off to get your lunch and just say thank you for your time. It's been good to be with you today. Again, come back here, download the PowerPoint slides to grab those email addresses and anything else you want to go back to.
Thank you.
Good. I hope that's been helpful.
Thank you very much.
Great. God bless you all. Hope
Thank
to see you
you.
soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.